the powers of government and the different branches that have those powers and how they check and they balance each other. This may be a reminder from last year, a review from last year, but we need to cover this to ensure that we all understand exactly how our founding fathers created these powers and created these checks and balances to ensure that our democracy can continue from generation to generation. You'll notice top right hand, we'll see that there are 11 slides here that I will be guiding you through. Through these 11 slides, you will find the answers to all of the questions and the activities on the corresponding sheet that will be handed in and is due at the end of class today. Introduction. The federal government of the United States carries out many jobs and has many powers. For example, the government can decide which words people can say on TV or when it's okay for someone to search your school locker. So how do we know that the people who have this power will treat us fairly? This is the ultimate question we're looking at. The new government begins. Imagine a time when America did not have its own government. Before the American Revolution, the British government created most of the laws for the American colonies. The British decided who had to pay taxes, how that money could be used. However, the people in the colonies didn't have a say in who ran the British government. After they fought and freed themselves from Britain, Americans began to create their own government. Most Americans did not want to give any one person or group too much control again. In this lesson, we will look at how they set up the federal government, so that 3 different branches or parts share this power. What you're going to learn. The goals, or the big ideas about this lesson, is that the United States Constitution divides the U.S. government into 3 branches with 3 different roles. The 3 branches were created to prevent any one person or group from controlling the government, and the 3 branches of the U.S. are connected and have shared responsibilities. Taking a look at the vocabulary word definitions. Commerce, representatives, responsibilities, separation. Commerce is the exchange or the trade of goods and services. Representatives are people who represent or speak for others and their interests. The people elected into Congress are representative for the people in their state or region. Responsibilities are the tasks that someone is expected to do or is accountable for. Separation, when 2 or more things are divided or taken apart from one another. Three branches of government. Today, the federal government is made up of 3 branches that share the power and responsibility of running the government. The legislative branch is the U.S. Congress, which has 2 parts, the Senate and the House of Representatives. One of these main responsibilities of Congress is to write and pass bills that become laws. Next is the executive branch, including the president, the vice president, and the other people who work directly with them, generally known as their cabinet. Their responsibilities include carrying out laws and coming up with a spending plan for the country. They also make treaties or arguments with other countries. The judicial branch is the national court system. The most important court in the U.S. is the Supreme Court. It makes decisions about the meaning of laws. On your corresponding worksheet, answer question number 1 now. List 2 to 3 reasons why you think it's important to divide responsibilities among different branches of government. Pause the video to answer this question. A case for the separations of powers. We will watch a quick video on the separation of powers. In 1779, John Adams wrote the Constitution for Massachusetts, which described how the state government would be run. It was the first constitution to divide up the state's power so that no one person or group would always be in control. Adams believed that everyone, rich or poor, should have a say in the government. This idea was different from an aristocracy, like the one in Britain, where the richest people ran the country. This video shows more about why John Adams wanted to divide power in this way, first in Massachusetts and then later throughout the United States.
The power John Adams feared most was that of an American aristocracy.
He was attempting to devise a structure of government that would prevent the wealthiest, the most elite in American society from gaining control.
Adams called for a strong executive in the form of a governor with veto power, for two branches of the legislature, and an independent judiciary.
Adams was the driving champion of that. He must have an independent judiciary. The judiciary must be able to come to its decisions without the influence of politics or the power of the other segments of government.
And by late summer and early fall, he has written this document, which still is the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and is generally regarded as the model state constitution, the one that became the closest approximation of what the federal Constitution is going to be.
We are going to skip this page for today. Okay, checks and balances. Very quickly, before we continue, the magic number for today is number 4. Please message your teacher at this time, just the number 4. Message your social studies teacher, just the number 4. Continuing, checks and balances. While each branch of government has its own responsibilities, the U.S. Constitution uses a system of checks and balances to keep any one branch from having too much control. Here are some examples. When Congress writes a bill, the President can reject or veto it before it becomes a law. So this is the legislative branch creates a bill, Congress in the legislative branch creates a bill, and it goes to the President, and the President must accept it or veto it before it can become a law. If he vetoes it or she vetoes it, it goes back to the legislative branch. Now, the Congress or the legislative branch can then only pass this bill, even if it's been vetoed by the executive branch. It can be if it's passed by 2/3 of the members of Congress, then it can pass and become a bill. Next, the President and his staff create a national budget, but then Congress must approve it before it comes into action. So executive branch creates a budget, sends it to legislative branch, is either accepted and put into action, or denied and sent back to the executive branch to be revised. Finally, when either one of these two branches cannot agree on what a law means, the U.S. Supreme Court, or the judicial branch here, can make the final decision between what these two branches believe. In 2 to 3 sentences, I want you to write down what you think the phrase checks and balances mean. This is question number 2 on your corresponding worksheet. The 3 branches of government. In Schoology, you should have a PDF with more information about the responsibilities of the executive, the legislative, and the judicial branches. This worksheet looks just like this, and I want you to pause the video and take a minute to read what each of these important pieces of each branch does. Then I want you to write down one job of each branch of the federal government and describe how this work is checked by at least one other branch. Okay, so 3 jobs, one job for each of these 3, and then how that can either be checked or balanced out by another branch. Take some time to pause your video and continue with this one now. We will be skipping this page as well. Our final activity for today is a click and drag sequence. Now, this doesn't look exactly the way that your paper looks. Your paper is going to have 3 columns. okay? On the left-hand side, you're going to see executive. In the center, you'll see legislative. And on the right-hand side, you'll see judicial. I want you to click and drag each of your cards from the bottom of the page to one of the three sections. Figure out which of these powers belongs to the executive branch or the president and his or her executive cabinet. Which powers belong to the legislative branch? That's the Senate or the Congress or the House of Representatives. And finally, which powers belong to the judicial branch? Okay, so which powers belong to the United States Supreme Court and the courts in their power? When you're done with this, please submit your assignment and follow your teacher's instructions.